Your dashboard might be completely accurate and still not tell you what you need to know. Hey there, marketers. Welcome to Son of a Pitch podcast, where we take modern marketing strategy and we break it down into clear, practical ideas you can actually use. I'm your host, Kenneth Spresley. Today, I want to talk about a distinction that I think is going to become increasingly important for associations: the difference between reporting and intelligence, because having more data doesn't necessarily mean you understand what's happening. This episode is brought to you by CGE Insights. CGE Insights takes scattered member data from the tools associations already use, conducts member mapping, identifies disengagement, and offers suggestions to re-engage those members at risk. Learn more at cgeinsights.com. Let's get into it. Here's the problem. Most dashboards are built to tell you about the past. How many people opened the email? How many visited the website? How many attended the event? How many members renewed? Those are useful questions, but they're all asking what happened. The more valuable question is, what does what happened tell us about what we should do next? That's where reporting ends and intelligence begins. Before we go any further, I want to make something very clear. Reporting isn't bad. Associations need reports. You need to know your membership count. You need to know your renewal rate. You need to understand event attendance, website traffic, email performance, revenue, and dozens of other measures. The problem comes when we confuse having information with having understanding. Imagine I tell you our conference attendance declined 12%. That's information. Now what? Was it pricing, location, programming, competition, timing, a shift in the audience? The report identifies the change. It doesn't necessarily explain the change. And it certainly doesn't automatically tell you what to do next about it. Here's an interesting thing happening inside of a lot of organizations. We've become really good at visualizing data. Charts, graphs, heat maps, real-time dashboards. We can make information look incredible. But a beautiful dashboard can still leave an executive director asking, okay, so what? That's not a criticism of dashboards. It's a reminder of their purpose. A dashboard should help someone make a decision. If your team spends 30 minutes reviewing numbers and then walks away without knowing what deserves attention, you didn't necessarily create intelligence. You created a prettier report. Here's the simplest way I think about the difference. Reporting describes, intelligence interprets. Reporting says, this member hasn't attended an event in 6 months. Intelligence asks, is that unusual for this member? Reporting says, our email open rate declined. Intelligence asks, which audiences declined? And did their behavior change anywhere else? Reporting says, our renewal rate is 84%. Intelligence asks, what patterns distinguish the members who renewed from the members who didn't? See the difference? One gives you a number, the other gives the number context. And context is what makes data actionable. One way associations can immediately improve their use of data is to stop starting with the metric. Start with the decision. Instead of saying, let's build an engagement dashboard, ask, what decision are we trying to make? Are you trying to identify members who may need outreach? Are you trying to determine which programs deserve additional investment? Understand why new members aren't renewing? Figure out which marketing channels are actually contributing to membership? Those questions change what you measure. And that's important because you can track hundreds of metrics and still miss the one piece of information needed to make the decision. Let's go back to the example from last week's episode. A member stops attending webinars. Is that a problem? Maybe. But what if they never attended webinars in the first place? Then nothing changed. Now imagine a member who attended almost every webinar for 2 years and suddenly stops. Same metric, completely different meaning. That's why intelligence requires context. What's normal for this member? What's changed? Is the change happening across multiple behaviors? Is this happening with one person or an entire member segment? The number alone can't answer those questions. The pattern around the number can. And this is probably the most important part. Intelligence should eventually lead somewhere. Let's say your analysis reveals that a group of first-year members is becoming less engaged around month 4. Interesting. But the work isn't finished. Now you need to ask, what happens around month 4? Is onboarding ending? Are communications becoming more generic? Have members experienced meaningful value yet? Is there an opportunity to introduce a new touch point before the decline happens? Now your data is influencing strategy. That's the difference. We're no longer admiring the numbers. We're using them. There's also a responsibility that comes with this. Understanding member behavior should be used to create better member experiences, not creepy ones. The goal isn't to make members feel watched. It's to help the organization recognize when experiences aren't working. If a member becomes less engaged, the response shouldn't be, "We noticed you haven't clicked our emails in 43 days. That's weird." The response should be, "We'd love to know how we can make your membership more useful this year." Same intelligence, very different experience. Technology should make relationships more human, not less. Here's today's pitch. Stop asking your data only what happened. Ask 3 questions. What changed? Why might it matter? And what decision should this help us make? Reporting gives you visibility. Intelligence gives that visibility context. And action is what turns that context into value. Your association doesn't need data simply to prove that work happened. You need data that helps you decide what should happen next. Next week, we're taking this conversation another step forward, because once you've moved from reporting to intelligence, a much bigger possibility opens up. Can your existing member behavior help you recognize what may happen next? We're going to talk about predicting member behavior using data, what associations can realistically learn from behavioral patterns, and where we need to be careful about assuming the data knows more than it actually does. Remember, new episodes of Son of a Pitch drop every Monday at 3 p.m. Central. This episode was brought to you by CGE Insights. To learn more, visit cgeinsights.com. Share this with an executive director, membership professional, marketing leader, or anyone who's ever stared at a dashboard and thought, "Oh, now what?" See you next week on Son of a Pitch.